What's up, guys, and welcome to theScore eSports podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Colin. In the booth with me, behind the boards, Daniel Rosen.
At this point, regular guest technician.
Yeah, I'm going to stop pointing out Josh's absence because he hasn't been here for like 3 shows at this point.
He's working hard.
This is a duo. We're duo queuing for this podcast right now. And who do we have on it? We're continuing our blitz of newly minted and legacy LEC League of Legends owners and managers and coaches and team members. Today, we've got Alexander Muller. He is the managing director of SK Gaming. And Dan, without further ado, let's just cut to it. Let's just bring him right on.
Absolutely. How are you doing today?
Hey, man. How are you? You guys good?
We're doing very well. Before we went on air, I tried my best to get your name exactly right, and I don't think I got there, but I think I'm getting closer every time.
Yeah, I think it's, a tiny bit is missing, but it's all good.
Right. We're 90% there.
As keeps coming up on our LEC podcast, Colin did take some German classes in an earlier time in his life.
Yes,
so I think he's trying really hard.
Yes, and I've been to Germany, and we were having a weird number of Germans on this podcast lately. Germans and esports go together really well, apparently.
It's something we just do. I don't know why, but we just do it.
And you do it well. So let's get right into it by talking about the exciting news that SK will be in the LEC. First of all, I suppose I need to ask, what was your pitch to Riot? What did you sell them on? What do you think had you guys accepted when so many more allegedly were turned down?
Well, I mean, first of all, we said you need more Germans in League of Legends. No, jokes aside. So, I mean, for us, it was let's say a special moment to apply for the LEC, because you will know from our past that we were one of the first teams in LCS in Europe. We qualified at Gamescom 2012. Played actually the opening match against Fnatic in 2013 here in Cologne. Lost that one, won the second match, I think, against EG. So we do have a past in this game. And when we dropped out of this league dramatically in 2015, we always felt the urge of there's a part of the story of SK that's being untold and it's unfinished, and we need to work on that. So that was the first step, so to speak. There was an urge within the organization to get back into League of Legends. And when the opportunity presented itself that we could apply for the slot, we made actually sure we knew it was coming, and we started before making sure that we were ready to apply. So we had a package that we could present to Riot, and that's what we did. I mean, a part of what we did is what you can actually see already. We introduced Deutsche Telekom as one of our biggest partners, if not the biggest partner, to our lineup already in May, heavily supporting our German League of Legends effort in the beginning, but with a clear focus on this game and also on the application. And Deutsche Telekom was with us in Berlin when we showed up for the interview for phase 2 of the application process. And so we were not only a traditional League of Legends team that dropped out of LCS and is trying heavily to get back in, but we are also a team that brought one of the biggest sports sponsors you can have in Europe to the table as well with Deutsche Telekom. And there's another part of the package that I can't discuss right now, but it will be revealed in January, that I think made SK not only historically, but also from an organizational standpoint and from the setup we have overall, an interesting partner for the league entirely. I mean, it's not only Riot we're discussing here. In all fairness, it's something you have to contribute to all the other teams as well. So Riot is one part, but the other 9 teams that you are working with, that's the other part as well. And I think Riot did good in picking the teams that met both sides, the league, but not only the league itself, but also the other teams. And if you look at again at the history of the game, there's a reason why we call SK against Fnatic El Clasico. There's a lot of drama when it comes down to G2 and SK. Obviously, they put us out of LCS. We lost to G2 in our relegation match. And therefore, there's a lot to the whole story of us getting back in.
I want to ask a little bit more about wanting to get back in the league, but before I get there, I'm curious because you mentioned something about an important part of the new league being working with the other teams. What do each of the teams provide each other in this case beyond just being opponents?
Oh, I mean, first of all, we're rivals, right? We want to take W's from the other teams, and that makes it exciting. We have fans that love Fnatic, that they love G2. We got a couple of fans ourselves as well, and we love the rivalries in between. So we're giving something to the fans. That's one big issue I believe that we need to tackle with this league. Europe is very much into in traditional sport. It's very much into football. And we have these rivalries as well, whether it's Barcelona playing Real Madrid, or it's Bayern Munich playing Dortmund, or it's Liverpool playing, I don't know, Man United. Doesn't matter, but you have all these stories, and we're trying to contribute to these kinds of stories in esports as well. And I believe that a good mix of old and traditional brands, like the ones I mentioned, together with these new and upcoming teams. I mean, we have a ton of respect towards a team like Vitality. What they did in the past 2 years in Europe is just incredible. The same goes for Misfits. But also Schalke, as a traditional football team, putting their foot into the esports area as well. So we want to be what SK always was, a team that is challenging all the other teams, that is trying to take more W's from the others than they can take from us, and by that trying to win a league, obviously. But we know that all teams have to contribute in terms of making this league very exciting, interesting to watch, having players that you want to follow, and creating storylines around the teams, around the players, but also around the matchups that are exciting for our fan base to grow. And that's basically it. And then we have the other side as well, which I believe is very important for the future. It might be boring for the community, but I believe that for the health of the league and our ecosystem, it's super important that we have teams and organizations that are very stable, that have good numbers, that know how to work as a business within this ecosystem. And that's something where we can learn a lot from each other, and where we can contribute to each other as well. Meaning, we have the league and we have the matches and we have everything going on, but we can also have activities outside the league where Fnatic and SK and G2 or Schalke, Mouse, it doesn't matter what teams, where they do something that is outside the box, that gives us more excitement. And that's something where we have to work more together than being rivals, than being against each other. That's something we do on the Summoners Rift, but that's not entirely what we do when it comes down to marketing efforts. So I think it's a great mixture of things you can do here. And the core of it is always, of course, the competition. That's where all teams want to shine and want to make it into the top 3 and qualify for Worlds.
Makes sense. So you talked a bit before about getting back in the league, right? SK is an org that has a history in the league, but I feel like you guys are a little bit unknown to maybe modern league fans. You haven't been in kind of major league, right? You've been in the Master Series and sort of the German leagues for a while now, but you haven't been in the high profile part of League of Legends in about 3 years.
That's one of the things, that's the urge. We know that there's a huge fan base out there that doesn't even know that SK has a history in this game. And that's something we want to take this. We want to build up on this argument, and we want to make sure that we want to start earning the respect of the fan base right now that doesn't know us. So they get to know us and they see us as something positive to the league, to the rivalries, to everything.
Mm-hmm. So, what I want to ask then is, what is the SK brand today then? Because you guys, to a certain extent, right, you have the German league team, but you don't necessarily have anything right now, at least, in those big major esports titles. Like, what do you feel like is the identity and brand of SK Gaming, given you guys are, a historic organization to esports?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of answers to that question. I think the The most dynamic one is obviously that we made a decision to drop out of or to drop our core asset mid of this year. It was our Counter-Strike team because we knew we were applying for this League of Legends journey, and we wanted to put full focus on the League of Legends journey. It was part of a major shift in our strategy. So you have this team, this brand that is known to be in Counter-Strike for the past 2 years, mid of 2016 to mid of 2018, and one of the most successful lineups you had in this time. That was our core asset. And now all of a sudden we say, you know what? There's an opportunity, and we do a full shift, maybe a full 180. I don't know how you want to call it, but it's basically what we did. So we turned the strategy completely around, and we focus on this one game as our number one priority asset, and that is League of Legends. And it starts with creating a vacuum. You can't just shift from Counter-Strike to League of Legends overnight. There was a lack in time in between, and that's fine. We knew what was happening. Our partners knew what was happening. Everybody who was working with the brand knew what was happening. So that was part of the equation of what we tried to do in the past 12 months. Also getting the new partners on board, like Deutsche Telekom, and the partners that you will get to know in January as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry, Alexander. Sorry to cut you off there. I just wanted to return to a statement you made a few minutes ago and just clarify that. You said that SK made the decision to drop their or leave their place in Counter-Strike behind for League of Legends. So are you saying that roster move that we saw from the SK roster to Immortals / MIBR was due in part to SK letting them go in a premeditated way in order to, at a later date, enter League of Legends again?
Yeah, pretty much so. I mean, it wasn't something we discussed with the players, obviously, because that's like the macro strategy of SK Gaming. We wouldn't discuss SK moving into League of Legends with them at that point, but we made it clear to them that we were not interested in making any moves within Counter-Strike, signing them off to another team and getting a new team into SK. There was no interest from our side in that particular move. We wanted their contracts to simply run out, have them for the 2 most successful years this lineup would have, and by that put a quotation mark behind this 2-year story that we had together. And that's basically it. The strategy was set in stone. We wanted to try something new for the brand. It's also connected to the new brands that we're working with, especially with the sponsors. Counter-Strike is a more problematic title than some people think, especially when it comes down to the sponsorship market in Central Europe, in Germany. A lot of companies actually have a problem with the game. It's a 16+ title, and we have no problem in working with and around it. But for some partners, it is a sacrifice, and they might not want to do it. So for us, it was a decision that had many layers. One of them was the opportunity to go into League of Legends again and to put full focus on it. The other one was to get more, let's say, corporate ready, because the big corporates, especially when the decision-making process is based out of Germany, they want to have answers in esports that are not 16+ titles. They need to be more friendly to them. So all of these decisions together put us on this road.
I'm glad, Alexander, you brought up the problematic nature of Counter-Strike as a title as it relates to sponsors, because it's something that accidentally it's sort of become a topic of conversation with many LEC owners over the last few days and weeks where we've been doing this podcast. It's actually come up organically with nearly everyone we've spoken to. I want to ask you a few more things about that, but really quickly, before you entered into that discussion, I did want to ask, from an outside perspective, it seems strange to get rid of what is one of the best rosters of all time and leave Counter-Strike, but leave it with one of the best rosters of all time under your brand for a venture that is unknown, which is, European League of Legends. It's new. And I think from a lot of outsider perspectives, like fan perspectives, they would just say, how could that possibly make sense? I think you partially answered it with the sponsorship issues, but are there any other contributing factors that made that decision?
No, and I mean, come January, you will understand more of the weight that put us in this direction. The major point here is that it wasn't easy on us. That wasn't like, oh yeah, now we're gonna do this. It was a major decision, and it was a huge risk for the brand. That's something we took it very seriously when we discussed it internally, and we knew that at some point we are also depending on the quality of our application and on Riot seeing what we try to bring to the table and agreeing with the arguments that we have for the league. So it was very risky. It was a ballsy move. You could call it that way. And I totally understand that the community, fans out there, have their question marks behind it throughout the way. I think at the end of the day, come January, February, they will understand completely what we did, why we did it, what the sense of all of this is and was, and that it was a smart decision. But again, there's no decision you take in esports that is risk-free. It's just one last point, because you touched it before. When we were considering the Brazilian Counter-Strike team and the future of this team, we felt that they hit, they were on the way out of the high note. They already achieved so much that it would be very hard for them to go into year 3 and win as many tournaments. Obviously, now we're discussing in December 2018, and it's always easy to say it in retrospective and now call them out and say they didn't win anything since they left us. That's not my point at all. I'm just saying we were looking at this team and we were asking ourselves, will they be this number one asset as they have been mid-2016 till the end of 2017 again? And at some point we decided against it. We're not saying it's a bad team. We just said that the team is probably, they hit their peak, and it's going to be very tough for them to compete at the highest level again. And that was our part of the decision. Of course, the team made a decision for themselves as well. This is not one-sided. But all of this, and I mean it in a very positive way, all of this led the organization back into League of Legends.
That's a very interesting perspective. I hadn't considered that, the sort of lifespan of the team. If that was a factor that you guys considered, that's very forward thinking of you. As you said, hindsight is 2020.
Let me add something.
Sure.
I mean, I think it becomes more obvious if you look at the Virtus Pro situation. How many years ago did we read the news about this team, the Golden Boys, signing a 5 years extension of their contracts? And where is this lineup right now? Esports is so dynamic and there's so much pressure on lineups. I think making decisions, sometimes you make the right call at the right time. And we made bad calls as well. Don't get me wrong. But obviously what we in management try to do is to see what might happen in the future. Sign the player before he becomes a superstar. Sign him while he is a superstar. And not overpay while he's on his way out, probably. It's just something we have to do. And every organization is pretty much facing the same problems here. And we have to make predictions. And it's not always easy because you have to try to look into the future. And that's something nobody actually can say that he's capable of, but it is part of our job. We have to make these decisions. And sometimes you make a decision of, not going further with a team, with a player, with a lineup, even with a gaming title like we did now, to create something bigger, something more positive. You leave something positive in order to create something more positive, as you believe is more positive for the brand.
Right, of course. Now, the other thing, when you talk about this, that you guys made the decision to leave behind, is not only the assets of this championship-winning roster, right, and the presence in Counter-Strike, but it's surely this fan base that you guys have cultivated in Brazil specifically that you would have had to made the decision just to leave, and now you've got to go to another region in the world entirely, albeit one where SK Gaming itself is based, and create, hopefully a similarly passionate fan base in an entirely new region. Surely that must have been a very, very difficult factor in weighing these.
Yeah, it is. It is. And um, I can only invite you to. We can have this conversation going forward. We can discuss in 6 months. We can discuss in 12 months. Um, of course, there is the risk of losing a part of your community, losing a part of your fan base. Our job is to create something where they can connect to, and we know that we owe something to the Brazilian community right now. Though we had to make the decision, I think we made the right call. But we do know that we have to contribute something to them as well in the future. Right now, our focus is here, and we're probably back to where it all started. I mean, SK Gaming is a Cologne-based team, always was a Cologne-based team, no matter where the lineups or the star players came from. We just have to build something where our fans worldwide can connect to best. And that includes the fans that we won over the past 2 years from the Brazilian community as well.
Makes sense. I want to ask you one more question about Counter-Strike before I jump back to League, because I do have
we're discussing more Counter-Strike than League, man.
Yeah,
we are.
I just have one more. And what I want to ask you is this, because you said something really interesting about how the sponsors kind of are hesitant around a 16-plus game, are hesitant around this game in particular. I want to know if you think that, as the managing director of an organization that was in Counter-Strike for quite a long time, is there something that can change in Counter-Strike to make it more palatable, or do you think that people may just eventually come around to it?
No, I want to answer the question a little bit different than you anticipate, I believe. My point of view right now is that we are in a position where we might have to take a step back and enter into a discussion of how do we work with 16-plus titles? How do we work with a game like Counter-Strike? Obviously, I believe Counter-Strike is a very cool game. I love watching it. I love competing in it as a team. But right now, I think SK as an organization enters a time frame where we have to contribute to a discussion that is not only happening in Germany, but all over Europe, on how do we as a society, as a whole, not only the esports community, but the whole society, parents, teachers, uncles, aunts, everybody around us as gamers, how do we answer to questions they might have in terms of titles like a Counter-Strike? And it's more important right now to have the conversation and to come up with a solution altogether, and then go back to, okay, how do we need to change the competitiveness of these games, the games themselves, the way we display the games, in order to make it work with the view the society has by them. Right now, I think we've had a great couple of years with these games and with Counter-Strike in particular. But we have to go into a different phase right now. We have to grow up a little bit right now. And that's something that we try to do.
Makes
Hope
sense.
it answers your question.
No, absolutely. It makes sense, right? It's about, society and esports in general, sort of adapting to this stuff and maybe approaching what we think is right and wrong. And maybe that ends up changing the game, maybe it doesn't. The other thing I wanted to ask, and this is going back to League, is, you talked about how you guys were making a predictive bet, right? You were saying, hey, we think this team is on the downswing. You are seeing the road that sponsors are feeling about Counter-Strike and how that is kind of potentially hampering growth in the future. You just made a pretty long-term bet with the LEC, right? This is, in theory, a league that will last a long time, and the buy-in was pretty steep by esports terms. That is a long-term bet, and I want to know why you made what is your prediction on that, essentially?
Two answers. One is the emotional part. At SK, we're in love with the game. When we saw League of Legends for the first time at E3, I think it was a beta they showed. It wasn't even at E3. It was at a venue close to E3. We were invited. We fell in love with the game. We, by then, discussed with Riot for a full year to have them at our booth, at the SK Gaming booth at Gamescom here in Cologne. And it was the first appearance for the game of League of Legends at Gamescom. it was we felt that there's something. We felt there's a connect at our booth with the game, with the fans and everything. So from the first moment we laid our eyes on this game, we kind of fell in love. And that's for the whole organization, not only me as a person, that's the whole organization. So there's this emotional part that makes you feel good about taking the risk. And the other part is when we dropped out of league by the end of 2015, obviously we tried to get back in through the amateur series. Didn't work out. Then we stopped it. We stopped league completely. I myself took probably 6-7 month full absence of the game. I didn't play it. I didn't watch it. Didn't see any LCS broadcasts. I didn't watch Worlds. I was not interested in it. I was kind of mad about the game, about everything of this game, because we dropped out, right? I mean, we have emotions as well. And then I started watching it again. And I saw that the quality of the broadcasts improved a lot. And I just loved what I saw. I dived into statistics. I called our friends over at Schalke, Tim, and I asked him, hey, give me some background. Where are the numbers right now? How many people are watching your games? How is it working out for you guys when you, even when they were in amateur series, they had home games. They had their teams play inside the stadium in a business area, and 300 people would come. And that was something where I thought, man, let's try to get back in. I think it's the right moment to look at the game. It seems to have developed a lot, and I think we were away from it long enough to have a fresh start. And as you mentioned before, some people of the community, they don't even know that we have this past. So it's kind of, we have a clean start here, and we're trying to take advantage of it. So in all of these things together made us feel very exciting. We pitched the idea to Deutsche Telekom on one hand side, to the other partners. Yeah, I know, I'm repeating myself, come January. And everybody loved the idea, especially the history of it. SK got coming back into the game and everything. And every single piece, it's like a puzzle. Every single piece along the way was like fitting to each other. And then we had the picture, and that was the application, and we sent it over.
So, Alexander, you just referenced it now, and a few minutes ago you mentioned it, but you're talking about January or February, there'll be a realization. People will start to understand certain moves that we've been talking about on this podcast. Are you referring to perhaps a specific announcement that you guys are going to make?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We made our homework. We are not only backed by Deutsche Telekom, we're backed by other brands as well. And I think it's going to be very exciting for the community, for the league, also for the other teams, to see what we bring to the table in terms of branding power, not only ourselves, obviously. And so, yeah, we're excited to bring something to the table at this early stage already.
All right. Well, we're excited too. We'll wait with bated breath on that announcement. Don't forget to send it over, of course, to theScore eSports so we can read it.
You'll get an embargo letter.
That's how we like it. Yep.
That's my favorite words.
Embargo. Yeah. Yep. That's right. So Alexander, as we do wrap up, I just want to give you the floor once more, one final time, just to say anything you didn't get a chance to say, bring up something we never prompted you on, or simply any parting words to the past and future and present SK fans.
Well, all we can say is we're super happy that Riot Games is giving us the chance to come back into League of Legends. We're super excited to show the community that once we were a cool piece within this whole League of Legends ecosystem, and we will try to contribute to the future. We try to be an opponent the other teams will respect. We'll try to give our very best on the Summoner's Rift and obviously around it. We're eager to meet the other teams again. We're eager to play El Clasico against Fnatic, eager to play Carlos, Ocelot, shoutouts, no banter. We're eager to play Schalke we're eager to challenge the French guys from Vitality, everybody who's in this league. And I know that I missed a couple of those guys. It's not meant as a disrespect. We're one of the small teams right now. We're at the very beginning of our journey, and we hope that you guys are excited about the journey, to go this journey with us, and hopefully we'll make you guys proud, and then you'll love us, or you won't love us. Then you'll love one of the other teams. That's fine as well.
Well,
thanks for having us.
Oh, well, Alexander, we will be certainly here at theScore Esports watching that journey with great interest, and also for that announcement that's coming up in the coming months. And I would love to take you up on your offer, actually, to reconnect perhaps after the first split and just go over these again with some fresh results in mind.
Yeah, let's do that. Sounds good.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for making time for the theScore Esports podcast. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
All right, have a great day.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Well, Daniel, we have a big announcement from SK to look forward to.
Absolutely.
That stuff about the Counter-Strike roster was new information to me, or at least new context, I should say more accurately.
Mm-hmm.
I had not heard it put quite that way at the time when that acquisition happened. As you know, we had that information under embargo. We spoke to Noah Winston about it. We had him on this podcast. Actually, we had an embargo podcast with him. And he never obviously said anything explicit, but it seemed, again, from an outsider perspective, to be a kind of a coup by Immortals, right? They sort of stole the roster away. And it's very interesting to hear the other side of things, finally, wherein they apparently just bet big on League of Legends and made a predictive call on the health and success of that specific Counter-Strike roster. That's fascinating. That's all new information to me.
I mean, so far, again, this of course, Alexander said this was not necessarily his point, but so far the predictions have turned out to be mostly accurate.
Yes, they have. You can't fault the man for that. Certainly, it should be said. There's caveats here and there. Obviously, Stewie 2K and Tarek, kind of new factors in the equation that maybe throw it off a little bit. But yeah, they haven't really won much.
And again, right? They made that decision before they got into the LEC. Right, it was before, as he said, right. It was that was not set in stone.
Yes,
and to make that call saying, "Hey, we're gonna be in there," is it takes a lot of guts.
Alexander said it is a ballsy call. Like, my God, that's a ballsy. You're sitting on a championship roster, and his comparison to Virtus Pro is very interesting too.
Absolutely.
I do hope we do not see the former SK Gaming current MIBR roster in Virtus Pro's shoes anytime soon.
Absolutely.
I really do hope
you don't
that.
wish that on anyone.
No, you really
Especially
don't.
not Virtus Pro themselves.
Hearts and prayers go out to Pasha and the crew right now. But in terms of
you know what else is going out?
What's that?
Us from this room.
Us from this room, this podcast. Yes, very, very shortly. I do just want to end on a really quick note about League of Legends, of course, which is the reason that we're here talking, and the reason we talked to Alexander. We'll be excited to see what they can do in League. They got a little competition from Schalke. We already spoke to the gentleman representing them, and we know that they'll be going for that market share in Germany. So in terms of regionalized fan bases, we might have a bit of a derby on our hands.
Absolutely. I think we're seeing a lot of those, right? We're seeing, we talked to Excel as well as Fnatic, that both see themselves as sort of British teams.
That's true.
We talked to Schalke and now SK, which see themselves as
It's
German
almost
teams.
as if Riot structured this in such a way as to create regional rivalries. That's weird.
Why would they do that?
I don't know. Storylines.
I don't know what those are.
Well, we'll find out come the spring split for the LEC. And as you alluded to earlier, Dan, it's time for us to get the heck out of this room. So for the absent Josh Burry, for Daniel Rosen, I'm Colin McNeil, saying thank you so much for listening. This has been the theScore Esports Podcast. And until next time, GG.